Okay, this is complicated. It's good, but it's complicated. So, cats and over. Welcome to the G. Louise book series. I'm Christina, Kristina, and this is where we read book and talk about books. There's no special effects here. There's no theme music going on here. It's just me reading books, talking books. And most of the time, I'm reading series books. We've got Laurel K. Hamilton's Anita Blake going on, and J.A. Jance, J.P. Beaumont series going on, and a couple others. Flashback Monday, please check in for that. I work really hard on that one, gathering all those books up. And this, we finished 2007. We're going to move into 2008. And don't forget Star Trek Fridays. I'm a series person. I do series. It's a series. We have character development from episode to episode. We have character development from book to book to book in a series book. These are a little standalone, a little series. I've got a couple of questions. I read the Patriot threat, and I just thought that was so awesome that I had to go find some others. And in the Patriot book, which is a later book, Danny is president, but in this one, he's a former president of 2 terms. So I'm a little confused. We'll have to see what happens in the next 2 books to try and figure it out, because I'm not sure what's going on there. But anyways, if you haven't already noticed, we're doing Steve Berry, The Lost Order. And we got a couple of stories, 2 separate stories that are intertwined. We've got The Hunt for Lost Gold, Lost Confederate Gold, and we've got The Hunt for Power. We are power-hungry people. So we've got Danny Daniels, the former president. Diane Sherwood is the wife of a senator. Kenneth Layne is her brother. Cotton Malone is our billet investigator. Stephanie Nelle is his boss. Cassiopeia is a co-worker. Leah and Terry Moore are helping for the gold. Taisley Forsberg is the lady that starts it all. Breckenridge, and then Vance, Lucius, is the Speaker of the House, and and after what just happened recently, I'm a little scared of what happened in real life. Is just, if this could happen, forget it. Orange would be in power yesterday. I'm serious. So Grant and Frank Breckenridge, father and son, and Martin Thomas works at the Smithsonian. So this thing starts out like all Steve Berry books in the past, and it's all about the Smithsonian Institute. At January 24th, 1865, he spotted sudden alarm on his host's face, an unusual sight given Joseph Henry's somber reputation as one of America's leading scientists, not to mention the man's prestigious title, Secretary of the Smithsonian Institute. He was sitting in Henry's chilly office on a comfortable leather couch, their business nearly concluded, but he'd made the appointment weeks earlier and was supposed to have occurred yesterday, but he was delayed, understandable, as civil war raged across the river in Virginia. And though the conflict seemed to be in its waning days, everything had changed at Gettysburg. Over 250,000 Confederate soldiers lay dead. Another 250 languished in federal prisoner of war camps, and 125,000 more were crippled and wounded. Where before a Southern victory had seemed possible, it appeared now that the high tide of the Confederacy had finally run out. And a fire goes to the museum, and apparently he was delivering a key and a book. And they said this fire supposedly, we won't learn too much later, was set accidentally. And Angus goes, they had left the book and the key in the office, when the fire started, and he decided to go back and get it. And when he got there, there was a captain there, and he ends up saving the captain's life, and that leads to the rest of this story. Now, there is also, like I said, there's a conspiracy of evil from the Speaker of the House, and it gives you chills. But there was also the hunt for the Confederacy gold. It's one of those legends that lives on, that supposedly there's this gold buried all over the South. And so we have the creation of the Smithsonian. This whole thing takes most of it. You have you have two main locations if you're going to shoot the movie: the Smithsonian and the forest in Arkansas. And then there's various other locations throughout the territory. Well, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Come over here. You really ever come over here? Come here. Come here. Come here, Sammy. All right, stick at my feet. So, let's see if I can find this now. Sandy. Sandy. Come here, Sandy. Come here, Sandy. Mark my computer, but you won't come to me. I lost my train of thought. Oh, so we have the when the Smithsonian Institute was created in 1846, 17 board member of regents was charged with its management. Presently, that board was composed of 3 senators appointed by the president pro tempore of the Senate, 3 House members appointed by the Speaker of the House, and 9 ordinary citizens. The Chief Justice and the Vice President of the United States acted as ex officio members, the Chief Justice being the Institute's Chancellor. Alex had served as one of the regent senators for the past 5 years. 2 years ago, she used that connection had him secure her an appointment onto one of the many Smithsonian's advisory boards. Now, I should back up a little bit. This brings up, so Danny is our former president, and he's attending the funeral of his former senator, Alex. And this woman approaches him and says that she believes that Alex was murdered and he needs to look into it, and that he has some documents in his apartment that he needs to see. So he investigates and he learns some things. And then the Smithsonian pulls Stephanie in, the head of the MI6 equivalent organization, to investigate some stuff at the Smithsonian. And she gets shot upon. And one of the Smithsonian people gets killed too because he knows too much. So we are given this riddle. I don't know if I'm explaining all this too good. But it's apparently there's this organization that, this is the gold part of the story, but it's also the other part, but it's mostly the gold part. It's the book that the journal that the guy was delivering in the beginning was part of this. The Knights of the Golden Circle sprang from the Southern rights clubs of the 1830s that openly advocated a reestablishment of the African slave trade, which Congress had banned in 1807. More inspiration came courtesy of the Order of the Lone Star, which helped orchestrate Texas independence from Mexico in 1836. Some even have argued that the order's roots stretched all the way back to Sons of Liberty during the American Revolution. The order was officially organized in Lexington, Kentucky on July 4, 1854, by 5 men whose names have been lost to history. It is heavily unritual, most borrowed from the Mason. Local chapters were called castles, and collectively Knights of the Golden Circles became the largest, most dangerous subversive organization in American history. By 1860, it boasted 48,000 members across every state and territory. Its economic and political goals were to create a prosperous slave-holding Southern empire extending into the shape of a circle from their proposed capital at Havana, Cuba, to the southern United States, the Caribbean, and Central America. This also plan called for the acquisition of Mexico, which was up to be divided into 15 new slave-holding states, a move designed to shift the balance of power in Congress in favor of slavery. Facing the Gulf of Mexico, these new states would form a crescent, the entire expansion of a golden circle, its planned robust economy fueled by cotton, sugar, tobacco, rice, coffee, indigo, and mining, all employing slave labor. In early 1860, newspapers across the country reported that the order was recruiting troops for a planned invasion of Mexico. It is unclear what went wrong, but the invasion never happened. Some say it was because of inadequate manpower and supplies. But with the Civil War looming, the more logical conclusion was that the order did not want to fight on two fronts. So they postponed their plans for Mexico and started preparing to fight the North. In January 1861, the South began to secede. By February, former states had ratified a new constitution and named Jefferson Davis their provisional president. The Knights of the Golden Circle immediately abandoned their expansion policies and became an ally of the newly created Confederate States of America and flourished. So they had the gold. And so part of this is about the gold. So there's a huge, I love history. I love reading about history. And this just grabs you in and you get, I read it in almost one sitting. So this is an interesting part. You'll have to finish. I don't want to do too much for you. But then Alex's wife has plans. She has plans. She wants to rule the world as a spouse of the ruler. She wants to be wife of the person in charge. And they're trying to make the Speaker of the House the person in charge. Let's see. Where did I say? She imagined the many times throughout American history meetings just like this had been held in nondescript places, outside the public eye where momentous decisions were made. One that came to mind was the famous 1790 dinner among Jefferson, Madison, and Hamilton, where Hamilton convinced two political rivals to support his plan for debt reduction in return for Virginia being the location of the proposed new capital city. The room where it happened. Another was the meeting in 1861 when Francis Blair conveyed to Robert E. Lee Lincoln's request that Lee assume command of the Union Army. Lee refused, instead resigning his commission and standing with his native Virginia. So, and there's another key thing that Danny, former President Danny, in order to stop Vance, he has the vice president make him Danny's replacement in the Senate. And only one other person in history has gone from president to Senate, and that was Andrew Johnson. And also, see, there's just two separate stories going on here, but they're intermingled in the book. So it's hard to talk one without talking the other because they're connected. And the one front wants the gold for gold, and the other front wants the gold to fund the political purposes in the Senate. And apparently there's several keys. There are these 5 stones, a journal, and an old skeleton key. And apparently, the skeleton key was supposed to be uh, just uh, uh, just a symbol. Um, why did I? Oh, I'm on the wrong page. That's what's wrong. The tradition of passing this key to the incoming secretary originated with the 1964 induction of S. Dillon Ripley as eighth Secretary of the Smithsonian. In lieu of the administration of oath of office, outgoing Secretary Leonard Carmichael proposed instead a key passing ceremony based on similar ones frequently used in the inauguration of university presidents. Chief Justice Earl Warren, Chancellor of the Smithsonian at the time, presented the key to Ripley prior to the January 23, 1964 meeting of the Board of Regents. The key, as representation of knowledge and guardianship, is an appropriate Smithsonian symbol. Dating to 1849, this large brass key may have opened one of the original massive oak doors of the building. Interesting. And then um, oh, she's the billet. Yeah, I said that. Okay. So then uh, someone is explaining part of the story of the gold, and this all started a long time ago during the Civil War. The Smithsonian played a dangerous game. Our secretary at the time, Joseph Henry, wanted us to remain neutral as an internal science organization, supposedly above politics. But that noble gesture angered a lot of people, and it didn't help that Henry and Jeff Davis were close friends. We barely had enough funds during the war to operate. By its end, we were broke, operating on a deficit. That situation led to choices. Martin Thomas arranged to learn about some of these, and Diane Sherwood has been a disproportionate interest in them too. And Diane Sherwood is the key to a lot of what's going on in this story. So then we have the tale of the stones. Now, the first one they find is that one. I don't know how good you can see it. The wagon stopped on the dirt track just beyond the split rail fence. Tree lined the rutted route that led 6 miles back to town. A few days ago, a tornado had cut a path across the road, dropping limbs which had obviously been cleared along the three-horse hitch to make its way into the Arkansas woods. "That's a fine-looking council tree you got there," the young driver called out. The towering oak sitting off to one side of the front yard had been there when Morris first came nearly 70 years ago. Its trunk measured a good 6 feet in diameter, the height and breadth of its massed limbs signaling age and strength. "It is that," Grady Morris called out. "The Cherokees themselves sat beneath that tree with the governor of this territory back in 1818 and bargained. That's how we got all the woods north of the river. Council trees were common in Arkansas, shaded places where men gathered. Grady Morris was particularly proud of his. He studied his two visitors. The driver was a young, tough, healthy buck, the other man more like himself, older, with pallid features, scarred and catered thin as a corpse, a white beard sprouting from a narrow jaw. "I need to speak with you," the older man said, the voice hard and sharp, resonant with authority. Grady held his rifle, which was the prudent thing to do when a stranger appeared. "About what?" "Your duty, sir, as sentinel." The older man climbed down from the wagon and stepped through the opening in rail fence as he approached. Grady noticed the watery eyes, red-rimmed with dark crescents that cast a haunted look. One seemed sharp and watchful, the other not so much, more clouded with pain. Wrinkles on the neck and liver spots on the back of the hands betrayed an advanced age. The thinning gray hair was nearly a perfect match for the woolen suit he wore. "May I shake your hand?" his visitor asked. They did the grip, the palm, and felt the familiar grasp of the third and little finger with his own. "Are you on it?" the man said. "Yes, I'm on it." They sat under the council tree for an hour, and the old man told my great-grandpa about the witch's stone. He'd brought it with him in the wagon. "You never told me any of this," Lee said to her grandfather. "Wasn't the time. You had to accept the duty, which I kind of figured you weren't going to, so I kept quiet." "You're special," the older man said to Grady. "You were chosen for this duty because of your family's dedication to the cause." "I fought in the war and killed my share of Federals. That's what I was told, so we want you to guard the stone as you've done our gold." Then the older man climbed atop the wagon beside the driver. "I do have one question," Grady said. "I was wondering when you'd get around to that. I applaud you for your patience. That and your discretion are reasons you were chosen for this great day. You wish to know my name, right?" Grady nodded. "I am Jefferson Davis, formerly the President of the Confederate States of America, now an unpardoned rebel and still loyal to our great cause." So then we have a story um, about the gold. "Everything seems to be turning up these days in Watergate hearings. Last week, fired White House counsel John Dean III raised the matter of buried treasure. Dean testified that former Attorney General John Mitchell told H.R. Haldeman, former White House Chief of Staff, at a luncheon Dean attended, that the criminal lawyer F. Lee Bailey has a client who has an enormous amount of gold in his possession and would like to make arrangements with the government whereby the gold could be turned over without the client being prosecuted for holding gold. Dean termed Haldeman non-responsive. According to Dean, Bailey's client proposed to deliver hundreds of gold bars to the Treasury Department, the treasure allegedly part of an old Aztec cache hidden in the American Southwest. Federal law prohibits U.S. citizens from possessing gold. Davis Lane, head of the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, questions on the claim. In the first place, Lane told the Herald-Examiner it would not be pure gold because the bars would contain some zinc, copper, and other trace minerals, but the treasure would be worth many billions, thanks to a $42 an ounce, and it's not Aztec. Lane explained that the treasure belonged to the Knights of the Golden Circle, a Confederate spy organization which existed from before the Civil War to around 1916 and amassed somewhere around $100 billion in treasure, burying in its depositories and caches all across the South and West. The hoard was intended to finance a second Civil War, which never came. Then, something that is mentioned in the Patriot book also. I should write this down for future knowledge. But Cotton always says his name is a long story. Angus Adams had been one of the Smithsonian's early hires, a painter who evolved into a first-rate illustrator. A trunk in his grandfather's attic contained several lithographs Adams created while working at the Smithsonian. In the time before photography, art was one way specimens could be memorialized. At the outset of the Civil War, Adams quit his job and attained a lieutenant's commission, becoming part of Georgia's famed Cobb's Legion. In 1862, he was promoted to a major and reassigned to spying. Cotton had seen several grainy black and white photographs of Adams, who had been short and slender with a bushy head of light hair and a thick mustache, both common for the time. More letters revealed a soft, talkative man with a rash of pessimism, reflected in constant carrying of both a gun and a knife. Friends called him dedicated, enemies labeled him a zealot. Nobody thought him stupid. He seemed to prefer nature over people, music to books, and ideas to silence. Most remarkable was the resemblance he bore to Cotton, there in the chin, eyes, nose, and mouth. As a spy, Adams had led the first covert incursion into Pennsylvania with 20 other Confederates, posing as a Union unit in search of deserters. He obtained a vital intelligence on troop movements which Lee used in his march towards Gettysburg. He was then sent to Indiana to stir up insurrection as a way to entice the state to join the Confederacy. He almost succeeded, but he was captured and imprisoned in Ohio. What happened after that evolved into legend. Supposedly, while in jail, Adams was reading Les Miserables and became inspired by Jean Valjean's escapes through the prison underground. He then noticed how dry and low prison walls were with no mold. Though thought they remained in perpetual darkness, they might indicate a constant source of fresh air. Sure enough, he dug down and found a masonry tunnel, probably used for drainage. Adams and 5 others eventually made their escape through it, and he left a note for the warden. Castle Moran, cell number 20, November 27th, 1863. Commencement of digging, November 4th, 1863. Conclusion, November 20. Hours for labor per day, 3. Tools, 2 small knives. La patience est emisse meilleur sans fruit est deux, by order of 6 honorable Confederates. That was the thing about an Edic memory, hard to forget anything. He remembered every word of the note. His grandfather had told him that Adams had possessed the same advantage, and what a character as the brazen note and French illustrated. The warden had not appreciated having his face rubbed in the insult of an escape, so a massive manhunt ensued. Adams fled south, heading for Kentucky near the Ohio River. Union troops cornered him in a small border town. He found refuge inside a farmhouse where the owner lay ill with delirium. Escape was impossible, so he hid himself inside the mattress upon the sick man lay. When soldiers inspected the house, they checked to see if Adams was in the man in the bed, but never thought to look beneath the man, inside the mattress. They left but posted guards at the door. The following day it rained, but visitors still came to see the sick farmer. Thankfully, the soldiers paid little attention to the faces under the umbrellas, which allowed Adams the opportunity to sneak away. When he made his report to his superiors, they were impressed and amused. One of them made a comment, something to the effect that Adams was apparently soft as cotton, since no one, not even the sick soul in the bed, had known he was there, and the name stuck, Cotton. So that's an instant revelation for the future books. So then we're still looking for the treasure, and we find the Heartstone. And the trail. Oh, let's see what the other one. Oh, that's the Heartstone again. And then that was the other stone, the trail stone. So, I did that already. So we have the hearts. I wrote them down someplace. The Heartstone, the trail stone, and we'll get to my list. Wanted to, excuse me. We all have a little talk before you arrive, Proctor said. It seems that a gentleman back in Washington named Grant Breckenridge hired them to impersonate Knights of the Golden Circle. They were sent to find the Witch's Stone, which you now have. That I do. I explained to these gentlemen that before and during the war between the states, membership in the order was an honor. Men were carefully screened and vetted before and being asked to join. The North was the enemy, and all who did not see it that way were regarded as the enemy too. Even if those men be Southerners, I envy those times. Those were so much simpler. The order's induction ceremony back then was most impressive, Proctor said. More men wore crimson robes with their silver lace. They had turbans on their heads and sandals on their feet. Then there were the masks painted to represent a human face. Not their own, of course, but another of their choosing. So perfect were the masks in the right light they appeared real. 2 oaths were required, both taken solemnly before God. Once done, all of the knights would remove their masks, revealing their true selves, and clasp the new members with hugs and handshakes. Sounds like a boys' club, she said. That it was, meant to build an army, and it did, tens of thousands of knights. They went on and became soldiers, administrators, governors, legislators, infiltrating every aspect of the North and South, a network of eye and ears that wreaked havoc. What an honor it must have been to be part of that all. I don't know. So then it explains what Vance wants to do. A bill would start in the House, be approved, then be sent to the Senate for it to be proposed or concur with amendments, as the Constitution defined the Senate's advisory role. True, both houses of the Congress would have to agree before anything could be passed and sent to the President for signature. But the House of Representatives could become the dominant legislative body. If a senator wanted to propose anything new, he or she would have to convince a House member to introduce the measure into the House. And no longer could one senator shut down the entire legislative process. Instead, 435 House members elected by the people every 2 years would call the shots, all led by the Speaker. Of course, the Senate did not have to agree with any legislation sent to it by the House. The Senate's only function would be to vote yes or no on the entire bill. 100 senators casting their votes on record, 51 needed to secure a majority to either oppose or disapprove. In the modern world, floor votes rarely happened, as senators were able to hide behind clearly crafted rules that rarely forced anyone to take the blame for anything. Bills were routinely torpedoed with no fingerprints on the bomb at all. Under Vance's change, the entire Senate would now have to vote on each measure as forwarded by the House. True, it could offer amendments, but again, the entire body would have to vote on those, and the House would be given the chance to agree or disagree. No cherry picking, no rewriting, no stalling. Just yay or nay. Even more difficult, if something were delayed because the Senate could not vote at all, then the entire Senate could be the one to take the blame. So that's what they want to do. And I don't know. I think I'll leave that for y'all to find out. But at the end of the book, we find out what happened after the fire after the fire in the beginning of the book. This is the fire, and we have, like I said, we have the hunt for the gold, and several people perish because of people's greediness, and the two people at the top are hunting for the gold and the greediness. There are people below that some are just going for the congressional greediness and the other half are going for the gold. And they set up this big, huge plot, and there's a big, huge revelation at the end. And you get to find out if the gold exists, where the gold exists, and what else is buried with it. I'll take the books. I'm a book person. I don't know if you can tell. But so it really is. It's a really interesting story. It's very layered. You've got two full separate plots that are combined. The search for the gold, the stones, and I wrote down. I know I wrote it down. It's in the back of the book. Let me just look and see if I can find it. I hope you have stayed with me this whole time. I really appreciate it. I have this goal. I would like to see 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. I'm pretty sure it's not feasible, but if you could encourage, oh, it's here. It was all on one page, but they have the, oh, I wrote it down. I wrote it down. Oh, 469. I passed it. There you go. There are all your stones. The trail stone, the heart stone, all the stones. So, if you've stuck with me all this time, please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. I'm just reading books and talking books. And like I said, I was hoping for 1,000 subscribers by Christmas. So if you could hit that likes, maybe subscribe, maybe spread the word, and check this book out. It's really good. I've got the next Steve Berry in line. I still want to find out how Danny becomes president again if he's already served 2 terms according to this book. But for plotline purposes, an author can change anything. And I know via Patriot Threat, which is several books further down the line, which got me into Steve Berry, hooked on Steve Berry to begin with, is that him and Danny still haven't, Stephanie and Danny still haven't done anything yet, so we'll see what happens there. But it is a really intriguing story, and there's a lot of history in here. And I like that the author explains how much of the book is actually true and what actually happened in the back. That's always fascinating information. I love some of my authors do that. But the Great Smithsonian Fire of 1865 described in the prologue happened. A mistake repairing a flue as described in chapter 59 remains the official explanation for its cause. Everything relative to the fire outlined in the prologue happened. We know these details thanks to several internal Smithsonian reports. My addition to the chaos was the presence of Angus Adams, the key, a field journal, and the Union captain. So, the Knights of the Golden Circle existed starting sometime in the 1850s and fading near the turn of the 20th century. It was the largest, most successful subversive organization in America. Tens of thousands of members. Interesting historians tend to ignore it, although the order plans for a Southern Empire, a Golden Circle, were real. So, it's a good book. It really is a good book, and I hope you stayed with me this whole time. I could just talk about this forever. I could talk about the Patriot Debt forever too, because finding out that the American Revolution was financed by a Jewish French guy is just awesome, and that he's a recognized patriot by the DAR is cool. And I should do this for the next book, but it doesn't really matter. If you haven't heard of the Lafayette Foundation, there's this guy that's tracing all the places that Lafayette went, and I met him the other day. It was cool. It was really cool. It was awesome. Mr. Julian Eicher. But anyways, please check it out. Steve Berry, The Last Order, and please hit the like and subscribe. Let me know I'm doing a good job. Thank you.